Well, hello and welcome again to our demonstration tonight. I'm Julie. I'm your host. I've got with me in the studio Whitney and Rick. And you know how you've always said, I wish I could be in two places at once? I know I've said that a few times. Well, guess what? Due to the magic of technology, tonight I actually am in two places at once. Oh, we're pre-recording this session, and I am going to be able to be part of your conversation tonight. I get to be out there and answer the questions and make comments myself. So when you see Blick Art Materials, that's me, and we'll have a conversation. So I'm here doing the demo, but I'm also probably putting one of these to good use while I'm talking to you tonight. So tonight we are going to be glass etching, and this is a craft that's been around for, oh gosh, since the middle of the last century. I remember my grandmother doing this, and it's a great way to make personalized gifts and to make personal decor and things for a wedding or perhaps a family reunion or an event like a shower. It's not as hard as you would think it is. All right, well, first of all, let me introduce you to some of the materials. Oh, before I do that, and I almost forgot our most important part, that is the e-gift card that we're giving away tonight. And I know some of you are excited about that because it's a way to get your Christmas shopping done early, right? Get ready for the holidays. All you have to do is like us, follow us, and we have a prompt for you tonight. So I'm going to put that on the screen right now. Julie, go ahead. All right, let's get the conversation started. And let's get the demonstration started. The materials that I'm using tonight are all going to be listed on our website along with a few short instructions. So anything that you have questions on, please feel free to ask me. I'm right there to answer them for you. But you can also go to the page and see a little bit more about the products themselves. First thing we're going to be using is a product called Armor Etch. It's a permanent glass etching cream, and there's different types of glass etching. The one that you might be familiar with, where you can get very white details, very big details, very crisp, that is usually done through a sandblasting method. So that's a little bit different. This is actually just a cream that we're going to put onto glass. It's going to use acid to actually eat into the glass just a little bit. And when it's done, it's going to be dishwasher safe and permanent. Now, you'll notice that right here on the front, there is a danger warning because we're using acid. There's some precautions that you're going to need to take, and this is not a project to be done with young children by themselves. With adult supervision, definitely. You can just make sure that you don't touch your face or and that you wash your hands very well. We're going to use some safety precautions that I'll talk about later. Nothing to really be overly concerned about. All right, so we've got an assortment of glassware here with us, and we'll need a way to mask off a design. Now, let me just walk through a few ideas that you might want to use. First of all, if you happen to have a stencil that could go on a rounded surface and does have adhesive to it, you could stick it right onto the glassware like so and use that. I'm going to peel that off again very fast. I'm sure some of you out there have one of those wonderful vinyl cutting machines, paper cutting machines. So you can buy a roll of stencil vinyl to go into that machine, and then I'm sure you could go out onto a website and get patterns and be ready to cut something out. and use that. That is so simple, and perfection, absolute perfection with the stencil, using it that way. And the third way would be to take perhaps some stencil film. We have here a frisket film. This is a peel and stick. So I've traced my design, and then I can take a X-Acto knife and just make a cut around like so. And I believe I've already cut out a piece here that I could pull off and stick that on the side of the glass like so, if I did a decent job of it. I'll just show you how that works. And then I'd cut out a couple of those little areas that I didn't want. All right, but the method that I'm really excited about showing you tonight, and of course I want to spend the most time on, is a way that you can create a mask yourself using a marker or a little bit of paint. And before I get into that, I just want to remind anybody who's joining us late that we are going to give away a $100 e-gift coupon. All you have to do is like us, follow us on Facebook, and we have a little conversation starting prompt for you to respond to. And we're just going to put that up again on the screen, and then as we go through the demonstration, we'll mention that a few more times so that you guys can respond to that. All right, so I have just some basic glassware that I picked up at a super inexpensive dollar type store. And any kind of glassware really will work. I have put some stencils, some patterns, some templates is the word I'm looking for, out on the website as well. They're right there with our product list. So if you want to come up with your own design, great, wonderful, good for you. But if you need a little starter, a little kickstart, I got a few things in there to keep it started. Okay, so first thing we could do is we could take some of our studio acrylic paint and perhaps a thin brush, and we could paint a design onto this glassware. But we could also do it with some markers. And when I say we could do it with some markers, I want to be very, very clear that not any marker will work. It needs to be a paint marker. Let me just bring these a little bit closer. So you can see some of the ones that I have had the luxury of experimenting with. And I'm so lucky because I get to work for an art materials company, and so these are all right here, and I could try them out and make sure that they work for you. So these brands do work. You want to look for a paint marker, but there again, not all paint markers are the same. Some paint markers are poster paint markers. Those I've discovered do not work so well. So these are a few. These are on the list for you. And if you have a marker, a paint marker, go ahead and shoot that name out to me. I'm on the chat, so I'm able to answer that for you. And I'm either going to say, yes, I know that'll work. No, I know that won't work. Or I'm going to say, maybe I'm not sure, because there's a lot of markers out there I haven't tried. But we can probably go over it and get you a marker that works. All right, so on the templates, one of the ones I have out there is a very simple laurel leaf design, like here, this. So you'll go ahead and print that out from our website and then cut it out. And there's many different, I've given you a few different designs. This is just the most simple one that I have up there. So it's a really good thing to demonstrate with and to also, for your first time, give it a try. All right, so the things we have to deal with glassware is, of course, we have a curved surface, right? Let's get this out here. So you can see where the paper isn't going to lay very, very flat like I'd like it to. one thing we can do is give it a few little snips around the side with a pair of scissors, and this should give us a little bit more of a curve, like so. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and tape that in place because I don't want to sit there and hold on to it, and besides, it's probably going to move around. So this is just a little bit of a masking tape or an artist's tape. And I'm going to get this position where I want it to go and try and get it on there a little bit straight. How's Whitney tonight over there while I'm doing this?
I am doing well.
Good. Hey, Whitney, have you ever etched glass before?
No, I haven't. But it looks really exciting.
She hasn't done it before, but she thinks it looks pretty exciting.
I actually have a question.
Oh, yes.
You said it works on just about any glass. Does it work on plastic, or could I?
Oh, you bring up a really good point there, Whitney. She's wondering, I did say that it worked on just about any kind of glass, but she was wondering about plastic things because, you know, of course there are plenty of plastic wine glasses and plastic dishes and plates like that out there that you can pick up really inexpensively. Actually, no, this does not work on plastics, and there are certain types of bakeware out there. Some of the real heavy-duty bakeware, casserole dishes, things, then it doesn't really work on that either. If you want to etch something and you're just not sure, I certainly would just try it on a little spot on the bottom or something before you go and do a complete design on it, and then have your time wasted like that. Okay, so I've got it taped in place the best that I can here with just a little bit of minor wrinkling. One thing I wanted to mention is on the stencils that I've provided, and especially this one, do you see there's a big black border around the outside of it. That's kind of necessary. If you look at the design that I have right here, everything that's white is going to be etched. And without a border in place to tell you where to stop with the etching cream, you could etch the entire glass. You just keep going and etch around the entire glass, which is fine, but that might not be what you want to do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start in with one of my designs here. I've got a Molotow marker, and so very quickly as I can, I'm just going to trace that circle around the outside and the laurel leaves. And then I'm going to show you how to do a monogram quickly on the inside. Now, because I'm demonstrating, I'm going to do it quickly. You'll probably want to take your time and, you know, make it a little tidier, a little neater. The other problem that we do run into is, I don't know if you can tell it on this camera from your angle, but the glass itself causes a little bit of distortion. It, you know, has a little bit of thickness to it. So even though I've got that paper just as tight as I can against the side of the glass, there is a little bit of distortion, and I kind of just have to trust that I'm going to get it fairly in the right place. Now, you want to start with clean glassware, and I'll just make this little laurel leaf like so. You're probably seeing a little more of the glass distortion as I'm working onto the laurel leaf, aren't you? Okay. Now, if you do happen to make a mistake, place a mark someplace where you don't want it to be, it's super easy to use some water, perhaps on a cotton swab, to take it off the area you don't want it to be in. Or you can also, that X-Acto knife that I had out earlier, you could take and scratch it away if that would work better, if it's in a real tight spot. Okay, so there we go. I've gotten my laurel leaf done. And I'm going to make sure I get the lid back on my marker. I'm so terrible at that. So frustrating. All right, peel that off. And you can see I probably want to do a little bit more touching up here. I mentioned that we should clean our glasses first before we applied it. And guess what I forgot to do? I didn't actually clean the glass off first. It's as it came from the store. Next, now to make a monogram, I've gone into my computer and just found a font that I liked that I thought I could easily trace. So this is what I've selected, and I've put my initials here. And it might take a couple of times for you to make sure that it's the size that you want it to be to go into your monogram. Now that's easily enough done. If you were to take this, if you place it over, I can barely see, but I can tell that's going to work. If it wasn't, I might have to actually resize the font and print it out again. And it's a little bit fun, fancy font here. And I'm just going to put a little tape on that. Then let's tape it in place. And that takes a little work sometimes to get that taped in place and get it exactly where you want it to go. But that's good for me. Now, next marker I'm going to use, I love this calligraphy marker because it gives me a little bit of a variety of edge. So I'm going to go around this side and up again. Oops. Get my tape back down there. And paint markers, of course, will need to be shaken up every once in a while. And sometimes they need to actually be pumped to get the ink flowing. I guess I've used this one quite a bit, so. And I've lost my put that down. You know these things happen when you're on live camera, right? Let's be safe and add a little bit more tape going the opposite direction, as I should have done in the first place. This is a good opportunity to show you because I just smeared that as well. Whitney, we are off to a rip-roaring start here, aren't we? All right, so with a little bit of water, and I'm just going to use a little paper towel, and it's a little dry. So I've taken my X-Acto blade and scratched away anything that's in my way. I can go back before I actually etch that. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to go back to my Molotow marker because I think my calligraphy marker's gotten a little bit overused. I've made a few of these things. as you can see on the table around me. All right, now I'm getting to the D. Again, for those of you just joining us, I am doing glass etching. Only this is a different process than you might be familiar with. We're using armor etch and markers to create masks. We are going to be giving away a $100 e-gift coupon. That's where we have gotten all this great conversation that I'm sure we're having tonight. I am actually recording this so that I can be with you live during this demonstration. I just know that you're going to have some questions to ask me, and I love the opportunity to be part of the conversation. So I'm out there with you tonight. Ask away, and I will answer your questions to the best of my knowledge. And I'm scraping away any. That's actually a very fortunate error that I'm able to actually show you guys what to do if you get a marker that won't cooperate, or you get outside the lines of your pattern too much. There again, this is an adult. Having a blade like this, that's an adult tool, so not in the hands of kids. All right, so we need to let it dry, but one thing that I've discovered, and this is really kind of an important part of this project, that if paint markers take a long, if they're allowed to dry for more than a couple hours overnight, they tend to not adhere quite as much to the glass, so that when I etch this, the paint marker would actually allow the etch in cream to get through a little bit. So what I'm going to stress is that make your design, draw your design, and as soon as that ink is dry, then go ahead and do the etching. Don't set it aside to dry overnight. Don't set it aside to dry even just for 4 hours, because you won't get as crisp as an etching that way. And I do see that I've got a little bit of ink here that's still drying. I could use a hair dryer to help speed that up. I'm just going to set that aside for a moment. And let's talk about a couple of the examples that I have up here with me while we're doing that. And I don't want to dump this whole thing. There we are. So here, this is an in-progress plate. And as you can see, I have already done the design with the two giraffes back here. Might help if I were to put a little bit of a white paper behind. I think you could probably see it a little bit better. And I went ahead and I have a pencil version of the wording that I taped behind here, sketched out my pencil wording just because I don't trust myself not to misspell something right in the middle of it. This is also available as a template if you would like to do this design. And now the next thing I need to do before I etch is simply write the name of the family member that I am intending this design for up here in this area, and then it'll be ready to etch. Another thing, while I'm over here, this one, let's take a look at this plate right here. And this one, being etched already, might look a little bit better on the dark background. This one, I placed an actual photo behind and then used my marker to just trace an outline, so I have a portrait of the people that I intend to give this to. And there we go. We'll get into the decoration part of it a little bit later. One thing I wanted to mention too is that some of the lighter and darker areas that you see here, this is one of the first pieces I did, so I learned from this piece, and I'm going to show you how to avoid that once we get to the etching part. Any questions, Whitney, on your end?
I'm still wondering about other kinds of glass that could be used, like maybe colored glass.
That is really good. And I brought an example here, so I can show that to you. Whitney was wondering about colored glass, like etching into an old wine bottle, or in this case, etching into an olive oil bottle. So I'm going to move that around to make sure that the light catches it and you can see. It works. It truly does work. However, it's subtle. It's just really, it didn't change the color so much as it just mattified, made certain areas of it matte and left areas of it very clear and shiny. So it worked, but it is a subtle effect. And I kind of like it that way. I do. Good question. Okay, well, I think this is going to be dry enough. Let me just dab it a little bit because I don't want to hold up too much here. And then I'll scrape away the little mistake that I made right here by doing that. Oh boy, I'm so glad you can't hear the sound, maybe you can, of a knife on glass. That is not a fun sound. Nails on a chalkboard. All right, imperfect. I'd go back and clean up some things before I etched it, but I want to move on with the demonstration. So let's move on. All right, I'm going to get my Armor Etch cream out here and shake it up good. Now, if I was going to do a large area, like perhaps the rim of the plate that I just showed you, I would use just a simple foam brush, because you're really not going to, the etching also can harm brushes. So if I want to do something that I need a little more control over, like this is not that big of a design and I want to not go over my circle here, I am just going to get an old brush, an inexpensive, perhaps pony hair or a kid's brush, something that I don't mind if something happens to it. And I'm going to use it so that I can have a little bit more control over it. Now you'll notice that I'm applying it right onto the glass, right over the design, and I'm doing it thickly. I'm doing it thickly, and I'm trying to make it as even as possible. When I showed you the last plate that had some areas of it that were lighter than others, well, unless we were sandblasting this, it would be very hard to get a perfect surface. And especially since I'm using just about the cheapest glassware that I could find. So it might have some flaws in it. In fact, one of the pieces that I did had a flaw in the glass itself right in the middle of my design, and I didn't realize it until it was too late. But I went and altered my design and then went back and added a little extra etch later, and it was fine. Kind of one of those happy little accidents, that I fixed. So I'm generous with it. I'm putting it on thickly, and I'm trying not, if I put it thinly like this, and get brush. I might get brush strokes. You might actually see where I placed those brush strokes. So I'm pretending it's more like a sponging effort over the top of it. All right, now we got to let that sit. And really it doesn't take long at all. The manufacturer gives us instructions to leave it there for a minute. I have left it on there for 2 and 3 minutes, and it was just absolutely fine. And I just realized before I started using the etching cream, one of the safety precautions I should have taken and did not was to put on some gloves. See, now I'm used to doing this. I've done it enough that I can do it without actually touching. You could see with the brush, I could do it without actually touching the cream itself. However, if you're doing this for the first time, you should put on gloves, because if you do get it on your hands, wash it off immediately. You won't have acid burns if you just get it over to the sink and wash it off. I've had a little bit on my hands, and I didn't even see a red mark on it because I just walked over and washed it off very quickly with soap and water. It's also, as I said, very important to make sure that you don't touch your face. I'm so used to adjusting my glasses. You too, Whitney? Yes. Yeah, it's hard. I'm terrible about touching my face. So make sure that you don't do that until you have a chance to go wash your hands off. And quite honestly, if you're not wearing glasses, it's really a good idea to put on goggles too. You know, you just never know. Something could fly up into your eyes. You could have an extra drop or something. It's a good idea to put on goggles as well. And especially if you would happen to have kids around to do this at all. Okay, well, I'm going to set this aside just for a moment. While we're waiting for that etch to take place, I want to talk to you a little bit about further decoration, because I think you've noticed in some of the pieces that I have here that there's also a little bit of sparkly gold involved, as in this piece right here. That is Porcelain 150. Porcelain is a glass paint. So it is available in a number of colors in a jar like this, and you just shake it up. I like the metallic colors, of course, for the holiday season. And then it can be painted on. This is a nice copper color here. You could paint it on, or since we're actually doing a marker project today, I wanted to show you that porcelain also comes in a marker form. So this makes it super easy to decorate with, and I'll demonstrate that in just a little bit. The markers themselves also come in black and white, and of course if you wanted to do some beautiful colors, you could use the paint as well. Porcelain is thermo-hardening, which it is going to be dishwasher safe, but first you have to put it in the oven for a little bit, and you can follow the directions on the side of the jar. It's super easy just to put it inside your oven, give it a little bit of heat, and after that it's permanent and it's dishwasher safe, and it's totally safe for you to drink out of too as well. I think I've given it enough time. I believe it's been a minute. If not, it's going to be enough that I can show it to you and demonstrate it to you. But this time I want to make sure that I definitely get my gloves on, because this is where I definitely could come into contact with the acid as I wash it off. All right, so of course you'd go over to the sink. I don't happen to have that luxury here while I'm demonstrating. So instead, I'm going to dip this into water and then take either a sponge, or in my case, I'm going to use a paper towel and work off anything in the marker. It does help to have perhaps a sponge with a little bit of a scrubby side to it. as this marker is a little stubborn. You're not going to hurt the etch if you did happen to have a scrubby edge to it. You're not going to hurt the etch because that has happened now into the surface of the glass. And a little plastic scrubber sponge is not going to etch into the surface of the glass. Good enough for me to show you. Let me move the water aside. Okay, and let's take a look at this. All right, can you see that etch? Somebody out there, Rick or Whitney, tell me, are we able to see that? Perhaps putting my hand inside there would help, matters. Now, it's actually going to be a little darker looking, the etched part. It will lighten up just slightly as it dries, and so you'll get a little bit more of a contrast. Let me set this one aside, and I'm going to bring out one that's actually dry so that you can see. Let's see, here's one. A little bit different design. I did some antlers on that one. And there's another one with a little bit different font to it. You can see there's just a little bit of streaky quality to the etch, but that's not bad at all. And so you can leave it like this, that's perfectly fine, or you can add a little bit of the porcelain either through a marker or with the paint. I like to do either the rim or sometimes I do the stem of the glass. Doing the rim, you probably want to get a fairly straight line. So if that's the case, you can take masking tape in small amounts because of course it's a straight line wrapping on a rounded surface, and just kind of mask off perhaps the lip area like so. And then I would have a guideline that would help me to get a straighter line here on the top. So just for fun though, I am going to demonstrate to you how to apply the porcelain marker. You can either go directly on top of the etch, or I kind of just like to do a little bit of a circle around like so. Perhaps you would want to do the design itself. I don't know, I think just kind of dots are fun. See, like that? All right, well, we're nearing the end of this demonstration now. I'm going to pull some more of these samples in for you to take a look at. And you've got just a final chance here to answer our prompt question so that we can get you entered for a $100 e-gift card. So get on that right away. I'm just going to move my little fairy lights out of the way here for now. Here's one that is finished, and I've done the rim, I've done the lip of it, and then I have my etch design right here. That's our family holiday wine glass right there. Very similar in design to the one I did, just a little bit more detailed. And then we've also put on our website a cup of warm memories for my, and I left it blank because it could be your mom, your dad, your sister, your aunt, whatever. But around the outside of the mug, it's just kind of swirling around, we have a whole bunch of warm, fun memories between, in this case, me and my sister. And you can see that the etching cream has been covering the entire glass. So that's another template that we have available for you. Whitney, did you like it?
Very cool.
Good, good. You gonna give it a try?
Definitely.
Gonna make some Christmas presents, holiday presents? Wonderful. All right, well, we're gonna have a winner here for our $100 e-gift coupon, and I'm gonna take a little time here to clean up and say, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And me, who's out there in the chat room, says, hey, this was fun. I'm so glad that we could have this conversation tonight. Everybody, happy holidays.